Have you ever wondered how a story really works, or what makes a movie scene so powerful? Even how the way we use language, shapes our understanding of the world.
It's really fascinating stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. And today we're going deep dive deep into this field of study called Russian Formalism.
Ooh, Russian Formalism. Sounds intimidating.
I know, right? But honestly, it's like this secret decoder ring for understanding, pretty much all art and literature.
And you definitely don't need to be a scholar or anything to get it.
Exactly. It's really all about how things are made, and it's everywhere, honestly, even if we don't realize it.
It's like it's hidden in plain sight.
Totally. So to get started, we're going way back.
Mm-hmm.
Early 20th century Russia. Think huge change. Tons of upheaval.
Oh, wow. So right before the revolution.
Yeah, exactly.
So picture this. Russia on the brink of revolution, like you said. New art movements popping up everywhere, ideas flying around. But in the middle of all this chaos, there's this group of honestly brilliant minds. And they were determined to find meaning and order, but not in the, traditional way.
Not looking for hidden symbols or anything like that.
Nope, not at all. They were way more interested in how art works, literally the mechanics of it, how it's all put together, how it does what it does.
So instead of asking, the classic, what does it mean question, they were asking, how does it work?
Exactly. And these guys, they were the Russian Formalists. And get this, they approached literature like scientists, dissecting texts, figuring out the building blocks of storytelling.
That's such a cool approach, taking it apart to see what makes it tick.
Right. And to do this, they formed groups like think tanks for literary analysis, the Moscow Linguistic Circle, UPOYAZ, which was, the Society for the Study of Poetic Language. And they just go at it, debating, refining their ideas.
And from these groups came some serious groundbreaking thinkers, people whose ideas would really shake things up.
No, absolutely. And their influence is still felt today.
For sure. So let's, introduce some of these key players, the people who really shaped Russian formalism.
Okay, so one of the big ones, Viktor Shklovsky.
Yeah.
And this guy gave us one of their cornerstone ideas, defamiliarization.
Ooh, defamiliarization. That sounds, kind of unfamiliar.
Well, it's basically the idea that art's purpose is to shake us up, make us see the world differently.
Like waking up from a dream and seeing everything for the first time almost.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's grab those decoder rings we talked about and really unpack some of these key concepts these Russian formalists were obsessed with.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we touched on defamiliarization a bit, but it's such a big deal to their whole way of thinking. It's worth digging in a little deeper,
Absolutely. And I'm, especially curious about how this defamiliarization thing, it's not just making things weird or different for the sake of it, right? Is there a deeper purpose?
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. So for the formalists, defamiliarization, it wasn't just about novelty, like you said. It was about disrupting our perception, shaking things up so we actually have to, engage with the world more consciously.
So instead of just going through the motions, we're forced to pay attention.
Exactly. They believed, I think, that when we get too used to something, we stop really seeing it. Mm-hmm. And art, they thought art could shake us out of that complacency.
Kind of a wake-up call for our senses.
Yeah, totally. It's about seeing the strangeness in the familiar, like you said.
Yeah.
Revealing, the hidden complexities and things we usually just take for granted.
It's they're saying, hey, look again. This is more interesting than you think.
Exactly. And think about how, a poet, right? They might describe something totally ordinary, like a blade of grass. But by using, unexpected metaphors or really vivid imagery,
right,
they can make you see that blade of grass, totally differently,
It's that they're making the ordinary extraordinary.
Yeah. Showing you the beauty or the, fragility or whatever that you just didn't notice before.
And this isn't just in poetry, right?
No, not at all. It's everywhere. All forms of art, Think about that scene in American Beauty with the plastic bag dancing in the wind.
Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful scene.
Right. It's so simple, but the way it's filmed, the slow motion, the music, it transforms this, totally mundane thing into something almost, spiritual.
And I never even thought about it like that, in terms of defamiliarization, but it totally makes sense.
It shifts our perspective, right? Makes us see the world with new eyes.
Okay, so now another term I'm really curious about is literariness.
Ah, yes, literariness.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like they're trying to define what makes literature, what sets it apart.
You got it. They're basically trying to figure out Like, what makes a text literary, as opposed to just like everyday writing?
So it's not just about what's being said, but how it's said.
Yeah, exactly. It's the form, the way that the language is used, to create that like special aesthetic effect.
So like a news report versus a short story, they might be describing the same event, but the short story, it does something more, right?
Exactly. The short story uses, imagery and metaphors and careful structure to really pull you in.
It's like, I don't know, the difference between a plain glass of water and a really good cocktail. They're both liquids, but one is, crafted to be something special.
I like that. That's a great way to put it.
So the formalists were interested in how writers use like literary devices to elevate language, right? To make it more than just like basic communication.
Exactly. They wanted to figure out what makes something art.
And you know what? Thinking about it, it's not just for like classic literature. We see this everywhere, don't we? Like advertising, even political speeches. It's all crafted in a certain way to have a certain effect.
Oh, absolutely. Any kind of communication that uses language, like deliberately and artfully, you can apply these ideas.
Okay, so now let's tackle a pair of terms that sound kind of intimidating. Fabula and Suset.
Okay, yeah. Those are good ones.
I know they sound complicated, but
they're not so bad, really. So Fabula is pretty straightforward. It's just the raw material of a story, the events in, chronological order, like what happened step by step.
Okay, so like the timeline of events.
Exactly. And Suset, on the other hand, that's how the author chooses to present those events. The order we learn things, the point of view, the pacing, all that.
So like the fabula is the ingredients of a cake and the Suset is the recipe.
Perfect analogy. Because you can take the same ingredients, the same basic story, but by changing the recipe, by changing the Suset, you can create a totally different cake, a totally different experience.
So that's how you get like different genres, different moods, even though the basic story might be similar.
Exactly. Think about a mystery novel. The fabula might be a simple whodunit, but the Suset, that's where the fun comes in. Flashbacks, unreliable narrators, red herrings, all that keeps you guessing.
It's like they're playing with our expectations.
Yeah. They're manipulating the way we experience the story, even if the underlying events are pretty straightforward.
Okay, I'm starting to get it now. And you know what? This applies to so much more than just novels. Movies, TV shows, even video games, they all play with Fabula and Suset.
Absolutely. It's all about how you tell the story.
Okay, now one more term I want to unpack is dominant.
All right, the dominant. So this refers to like the element that really stands out in a work of art. The driving force, the thing that shapes everything else.
So like in a love poem, it might be that overwhelming feeling of like passion that you feel in every line. Or in a horror movie, it's that sense of dread that keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Exactly. It could be a theme, a stylistic choice, a recurring image, even a specific emotion, whatever it is. It's the thing that sets the tone, that gives the work its like unique flavor.
And the formalists thought that by identifying the dominant, you could really understand the work as a whole.
Yeah, they believed it was like the key to unlocking the whole thing.
It's like that aha moment where you're like, okay, now I get it.
Totally. Because the dominant, it ties everything together, gives it coherence.
Yeah.
It's what makes the work have that impact.
This is all so fascinating, and I'm really starting to see how these ideas, even though they might sound, I don't know, technical or whatever, they can really help us understand and appreciate art and stories on a deeper level.
It give you a new way to see things.
Yeah, totally. But you know what? I'm also curious about how these ideas have influenced how we think about literature and art today. After all, Russian Formalism had happened over a century ago. So are these ideas still relevant in, the 21st century?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, that's a great question. And, it's kind of amazing to think about, these ideas coming out of like early 20th century Russia, all the intellectual ferment, and they're still so relevant today.
Yeah, it really shows you how powerful their approach was.
Right, like the Russian formalists, they weren't just, analyzing old books for the sake of it. They were trying to understand something fundamental, like how does art work? How does it grab us, make us feel things, change how we see the world?
It's like they were pioneers, mapping out a whole new territory.
Exactly. And the map they made, it's still so useful. I mean, think about how we talk about movies now, right? We talk about plot structure, character types, those slow motion shots we talked about, all that stuff. We owe a lot of that to the formalists.
It's like they gave us the language to talk about art.
And it's not just art and literature either. Their focus on, structure, technique, it includes so many other fields too. semiotics, structuralism, all these ways of looking for patterns in, well, everything, really.
So, like, their ideas have spread way beyond just literature.
Totally. I mean, think about it. We analyze ads, political speeches, even like website design using some of these same ideas. It's all about understanding how form shapes meaning.
It's like they gave us this, X-ray vision for culture. But, okay, so we can analyze things, but can we use these ideas to be more, creative?
Oh, definitely. Once you understand these techniques, it makes you a more, how do I say it, conscious creator. Whether you're writing, designing, whatever, knowing how language works, how to build suspense, evoke emotions, it all helps you communicate better.
So it's like learning the tricks of the trade so you can make your own masterpiece?
Exactly. The formalists, they weren't just critics, they were artists too. And they believed that understanding these tools, well, could help anyone unlock their creative potential.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. It's really made me rethink how I see art, literature, even just like the world around me.
It's been awesome exploring these ideas with you.
And to all our listeners, we hope you're feeling inspired to, learn more about Russian formalism and see how these ideas can change the way you see things. And who knows, maybe even spark your own creativity.
That's what we love to see.
So on that note, we'll leave you with this. Now that you've got these tools, what will you create? Yeah. Have you ever wondered how